All right, everybody. Today we're going to jump into a topic that I think is kind of important here. And I just seen a Greg Doucette video, which I'll place here somewhere on the screen, talking about a gentleman's podcast who he was saying is how achievable is a 305 bench press or 315 bench press. Basically getting to the 300s on a bench. And I thought this would make for a good topic here. You got to understand this. When you look at statistics, because this is what I'm pulling up here, so this is strength statistics. So it talks about men and women, and then starting as beginners, novice, intermediate, advanced, and then elite. And I'm going to put those on the screen as we go through for the bench press, the deadlift, and the squat, because that's powerlifting standards, right? This is from strengthlog.com. I don't know exactly how accurate the statistics are. I didn't dive too deep into it. I just wanted to use this as a talking point. I looked at some other websites that I think were pretty notable, and they pretty much say the same thing. I was looking at different charts and just different statistics, and they're all roughly around the same frame, right? So, diving back to this podcast where he's talking about can you do a 315-pound bench press? So, these are just metrics, right? Statistics, I think, are important because it gives you like a baseline for different groups, whether it be just starting out, how long have you been lifting for, it could be age, whatever it is you're diving into for statistics, but don't make them concrete to you. So what do I mean by that? So for example, the beginner bench press for men is 119 pounds. And like I said, this is up here on the top right, so you're going to see this as well. For novice, 176. Intermediate's 220. Advanced is 265. And elite is 370. Okay, so this is taking the average men and women, right? So you got to take some of this also into context. Are they talking about the average gym goer? Or are they talking about the average person? Because not everyone in a pool of people goes to the gym. Actually, not that many people. It's not even a majority. So if this is the gym goer, I think these numbers may be a little bit sliding to the right. They may be on a sliding scale where the strength is actually more. 370 on a bench press, it sounds like a lot. I haven't ever benched that much myself, but 265 I've been hitting for years. It's saying that I'm in an advanced population here. I see people plenty of times in the gym clearing these numbers. So while you may be thinking that wherever you're at currently, whether it be a beginner, novice, or intermediate or advanced, don't get so focused on it that you think that you don't have the genetic potential or you don't have the body that's capable of doing these lifts to get to intermediate, advanced, and hopefully elite based off of what this is saying here. I've hit 315 on my bench press 5 years ago for singles. When I was doing more of like a powerlifting 1,000-pound club style approach to things. I was trying to hit my maxes. 335 was my heaviest on a single, but I was also, let's see, I weigh 213 right now. I weighed like 185, 190 when I did that. And I really still don't think I was training as properly as what I should have. My nutrition was not in check. So we could take it from there. There was a lot of things that were still off, right? Additionally, I'm doing pauses with 285 on bench right now on decline. Decline is not exactly flat. I understand this. But the main thing is the weight itself. There's no struggle here. If you go down, so now we're on the squat. For men, beginners 128, 205 for novice, 265 for intermediate, 324 for advanced, 448 for elite. Okay, all the factors we take into account here. I think with squatting and deadlift, it's going to be more so about the commitment to doing it. And also, this is also something to think about. Not everybody is going to be training for maxes. So y'all just see me do hack squats 410 for, I think it was 7 or 8. And I haven't barbell back squatted in a while because I'm trying to save my lower back for my deadlift days. So I'm using that to offset CNS fatigue, still focus on hitting my legs. But I've been up there pretty heavy on the squats as well. And this is saying that I'm somewhere in the upper advanced to close to elite, right? But once again, you don't go into things thinking that these are barriers. You just really got to try your hardest to see where you're going to fall. A lot of this is going to be your effort. Everyone talks about the genetics and the factors that you can't change being something that's going to be the biggest factors, right? But I think what happens is we skip over the important stuff. So genetics, you can only know if that's your limiting factor on the back end. Mike Mincer said it best. Do not worry about your genetic potential. Worry about the day in, day out, and pushing yourself regardless. Because you're not going to know until you get to the end, which there really never is an end until your body starts to, reverse as you get older. There will be a point where the decline starts to happen naturally, but that's decades. So I'd say the first thing you need to work on, don't even worry about putting in effort first. Consistency. Just get to the gym day in, day out, and focus on getting better at that lift. And then start applying more and more effort. You don't have to go in and squat to absolute failure on your first squat session. Approach these things as getting just a little bit more comfortable being uncomfortable. Don't try to jump in, to the extremely hot water and think that it's going to, feel good. Just turn, like imagine you're getting in the shower and you're wanting to get adjusted to cold and colder and colder. If you get into ice cold water, it catches your breath and you want to immediately jump out and it's very difficult to do and you mentally have to kind of get yourself ready. If you get in there where it's just manageable, I didn't say warm or you're super comfortable, just manageable, and then you slowly adjust it. Every minute, slowly adjust it. And before you know it, you're sitting in this cold water, right, in a shower, and you have no issues. Approach the gym the same way and your nutrition the same way. Get comfortable being consistent. Approach each lift intentionally. If you're going to do low bar, stick with low bar. If you're going to do high bar, stick with high bar. If you're going to do wide grip, narrow grip on bench, conventional, sumo, whatever it is, and just apply consistency to getting better at the technique, the form, and gradually increasing the weight over time. This is going to increase to the point where you have to apply effort, but now you're doing it in a calculated process, right? Now we're at the deadlifts here. Beginner for men, 168, novice, 265, intermediate, 331, advanced, 406, elite, 529. Once again, I'm creeping up between advanced and elite. I have pulled the mid 400s whenever I was doing the powerlifting style, and I was about 180, 190 as well when I was focusing on maxes. And once again, nutrition was not in check. The training was not really in check. I was actually just grinding in the maxes over and over every week, right? Every week I was saying, I need to pull this more weight, sometimes twice a week. And that's just not feasible. It actually was causing a lot of strain on my lower back. And this is why people say deadlift is risky, because unlike the other lifts, if you don't respect the deadlift with your CNS fatigue, it's going to catch up to you and it's going to compound on itself. And before you know it, you're going to pull, and then you're going to feel something a little off, and you're going to keep pushing it. With squat, it's a little bit more noticeable right off the bat. As soon as you unrack the weight, you pretty much know confidently if you're going to hit it or not. Bench press, you may have some shoulder pain. As long as you have a spotter there, the risk is not too high for that. Actually, more people get hurt on bench press, I think, than deadlift, but I think that's due to inadequate form and technique more so than it is pushing yourself, because you're trapped in a bench press. Like once it's on top of you, you're done. With a deadlift, you can drop it. So most people get hurt, I think, with deadlift from applying effort incorrectly and improper training. Whereas bench press, I think, is just more so the actual station setup itself, you being trapped underneath the weight. But just if you start applying yourself consistently to these lifts, and also something else that's not talked about here is, do you take your accessory work, if you're in the powerlifting world, serious, right? So when you're doing these other lifts, either after your main lifts or before, however you have your program structured, are you putting just as much effort into them as you are your bench, squat, and deadlift? Because most of the time people get cooked doing their big lifts, and then they just fade away throughout the rest of their workout trying to struggle through the accessory work, right? But if you approach every single exercise, like when I'm doing hamstring curls and leg extensions, I do not see them as any different than I do my hack squat, my leg presses, my back squat. I don't see side laterals as different than shoulder presses. I don't see incline any different than I do see flat bench. So why would you want to slack off on those, thinking that just doing the actual bench press, squat, and deadlift is going to increase? That's probably the most issue I see when it comes to like the novice intermediate level with these weights. When people get stuck underneath the 300, the 400s, those areas, is that their training program and their commitment to it is not there yet, or they're not focused on it. They're still so focused on just wanting to hit maxes that they don't apply the effort in the other areas and build a foundation more so than they are. Because like if you're trying to build a bench press, this is like if it was a pyramid, this would be a very narrow pyramid, right? What we want to get good at is every lift that we do. So now our base for our pyramid is wide. It's wide and it's got a stable foundation. So if I want a strong shoulder press, having stronger side delts and rear delts is going to help with stability. Having a better upper chest is going to help with shoulder presses. So the more that you apply your effort to everything, they all work together. Your body is one unit. So the better your base is, the better your strength peak is. Don't get too focused on the main lifts that you neglect everything else that's outside of it. Nutrition and sleep, hydration, these are huge. If you're wanting to increase these lifts, I really suggest that you start to, in some way, shape, or form, track your nutrition. If you can't get to the point where you're counting your food on a scale, at least count it in something measurable. Your fist or a spoon, a cup, measuring cup, something, just kind of eyeballing it where you have a rough idea of what it is so you can manipulate your proteins, fats, and carbs in a way that's going to be more beneficial for you. Because you may be carb depleted thinking, oh man, I feel so weak. And you're trying to max out on a low carb day, and you're actually been in a calorie deficit for probably weeks because you didn't even know it. Sometimes you think you're eating enough and you may not be. Some people have a hard time eating. And next thing you know, you're trying to pull your max and you wonder why you feel weak. Are you actually committing yourself to good sleep? How much water are you drinking versus sugary beverages? Stop putting the garbage stuff when it comes to nutrition, the quick foods, the fried foods in, and expecting peak performance. I see my nutrition now just as for the past like year, maybe almost two. I've really started to dial in my nutrition more and more, taking my health a lot more serious. And so when I started doing that, barriers started being removed. Strength caps that I thought were strength caps may have just been me limiting myself in the factors that contribute outside the gym into the gym. So don't think that, oh, advanced and elite is outside of your grasp, because you have to dial in everything before you can, say with a concrete, answer like, oh, this might be outside my limit. This channel is called Endless Potential for a reason, and that's because potential is the opportunity. Every single one of us has endless potential. The thing about potential is it's at the end. You don't know where your potential is at until you've applied yourself fully to it. So if you're trying your hardest, you are maxing out your potential day in, day out. And so that's why I say don't be skipping your days. Make your gym sessions part of your life. It doesn't have to be your only part of your life, but make them, make those sessions part of your life, because this is a lifestyle. You don't have to be competing. Just staying healthy and in shape. This is going to help with joint integrity as you get older, muscle retention, helps with hormonal balances as you get older. It's going to help with bone density, because if you ever notice that when people get older, they get more frail, right? They don't put load on their body, so they have their bones start to deteriorate as you get older. That's just part of the natural course of things, but we can kind of help it, where that way if you fall over in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and so on, that you don't end up having hip fractures and stuff like that. You break your leg because there's issues there. So when you're doing these things, you're not just thinking, for now, this is why I'm doing this. This needs to be a lifetime commitment to yourself. Statistics are just measurements of different factors, right? So we don't know what all was included in this to get these numbers, and they may not apply to you, especially if you haven't applied yourself yet. We're kind of going to dive more and more into these kind of things. I'm hoping this will help you, get past sticking points, or maybe things you're not thinking about, or maybe you just haven't ever really dove into it at all, and you're kind of surprised by the numbers that you see, because you might be higher up on the scale than what you thought, or you may be right where you thought you was at, and so now you have at least some idea of how to get farther. Applying fun, like 80% of success, I think, when it comes to physique and it comes to strength, muscle size, conditioning, whatever it may be, I think 80% of it is just fundamentals. The stuff that works, good technique, good form, good nutrition, good sleep, good hydration, that is the majority. Now, when you're wanting to get to the peak point, that's when you're talking about the top 20%-ish that really counts, right? And then it gets even smaller and smaller as you get more dialed in. But if your focus is general health and getting to an intermediate, advanced, and elite level strength, then make sure you're applying those first.